Have you ever noticed how money can dominate thoughts, emotions, and decisions, even when we believe we have control? Every day, people wake up early, work hard, make plans, dream of stability, freedom, and success, but still live trapped by anxiety, debt, or the constant feeling that it's never enough. And the question almost no one asks is, are we learning about money from the right source? The Bible is not just a spiritual book, it is also a profound manual on life, purpose, prosperity, and financial wisdom. Long before gurus, courses, or promises of quick riches existed, the scriptures already revealed principles capable of transforming the human relationship with money, work, and success. Principles that not only increase resources but also shape character, bring balance, and build lasting prosperity. In this video, you will discover 10 biblical principles about money that will make you rich, and we're not just talking about material wealth. We're talking about a change in mindset, more conscious financial decisions, businesses guided by integrity, and a life aligned with eternal values, even amidst the pressures of the modern world. Each principle you'll hear here connects directly to real-life situations: salaries, debt, investments, consumption, work, entrepreneurship, and purpose. So, stay until the end because the last principle can change the way you view wealth and success. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Principle 1. God is the source, not money. Many people say they trust in God, but in practice, they place their security in their salary, job, business, or bank account balance. An economic crisis, an unexpected layoff, or a drop in revenue is enough to make peace disappear. This happens because, without realizing it, the heart has begun to see money as a source and not as a tool. The Bible is direct when it states that wealth and honor come from the Lord, and that He is the one who grants the ability to generate resources. In other words, money is not the point of origin, it is merely the means by which provision manifests itself. When this truth is unclear, financial life becomes a field of constant anxiety. People work hard, but always fear losing everything. They earn more, but the worry also increases. In business, decisions are guided by the desperation to make a profit, even if it costs principles, values, or inner peace. How many people have compromised their integrity, their family, or their emotional health because they believed that money was the only source of security? Understanding that God is the source completely changes how we approach work and business. This doesn't mean sitting idly by waiting for miracles, but working with excellence without carrying the weight of financial idolatry. When God occupies the rightful place, work ceases to be a desperate burden and becomes a mission. Business stops being an endless race and becomes an instrument of purpose. Money ceases to be a demanding master and becomes a useful servant. In practice, this principle manifests itself when you learn to make financial decisions without panic. When you understand that your income doesn't define your worth. When you understand that a closed door doesn't mean the end, but can be a redirection. People who recognize God as the source are able to navigate crises with more balance because they know that provision is not limited to a single source of income. A job may end, a client may leave, a project may fail, but the source remains intact. This principle also brings clarity to success. Many confuse prosperity with accumulation. The Bible shows that true prosperity begins with alignment with God. There are people who earn a lot of money but live in constant emotional and spiritual scarcity. Others may have less, but live with peace, purpose, and continuous growth. The difference is not in the amount of money that comes in, but in the source they trust. When God is the source, you begin to see money with wisdom. You plan, manage, invest, and grow, but without allowing it to occupy the central place in your heart. This balance is rare in today's world, where everything encourages the belief that more money will solve all problems. The Word, however, warns us that when money becomes the center, it also becomes a burden. Perhaps upon hearing this, you will realize that part of your financial anxiety doesn't stem from a lack of money, but from a lack of alignment. Perhaps you have built your security on something unstable. This first principle is not merely theoretical, it is liberating. It returns money to its rightful place and puts God back at the center, where He has always been. Principle 2. Faithful stewardship attracts more resources. The Bible makes it clear that God observes faithfulness in little things before entrusting much. This is not just an abstract spiritual idea, it is a practical law of life. He who poorly manages 100 will hardly know how to manage 1,000. He who loses control of small expenses will hardly have the wisdom to handle great responsibilities. The lack of resources is often not linked to a lack of opportunities, but to a lack of stewardship. Faithful management doesn't necessarily mean earning a lot, but take good care of what you have. It's about understanding that every resource, money, time, skills, contacts, and opportunities, carries a responsibility. In practice, this is reflected in daily decisions, knowing where the money is going, avoiding impulsive spending, planning before making commitments, separating what is essential from what is a momentary desire. It seems simple, but it is precisely in these invisible choices that the financial future is being built. In the business context, this principle becomes even more evident. Many entrepreneurs dream of high revenues but ignore basic controls. They sell more but profit less. They grow in volume but sink into disorganization. The Bible teaches that healthy growth doesn't happen by chance. It is the fruit of faithfulness, discipline, and responsibility. When a business is managed with wisdom, transparency, and vision, it becomes a conducive environment for sustainable growth. There's also a profound spiritual aspect to this principle. Faithful stewardship reveals maturity. It reveals that the person is not dominated by impulse, ego, or anxiety. It reveals an awareness that everything that passes through their hands does not belong to them absolutely. This mindset completely changes the relationship with money. Instead of spending to impress, one spends purposefully. Instead of wasting, one builds. Instead of reacting, one plans. Many people live trapped in repetitive financial cycles. They receive, they spend, they get frustrated, and they start over. They pray for provision, but they don't adjust their habits. They ask for open doors, but they don't take care of what has already been opened. Faithfulness in management breaks this cycle. It brings clarity, organization, and direction. And where there is clarity, there is growth. Where there is order, there is room for expansion. Principle 3. Planning is wisdom, not lack of faith. There is still a very present idea that over-planning demonstrates insecurity or a lack of trust in God, as if organization, goals, and strategy were signs of spiritual independence. However, when we look at the Bible carefully, we see exactly the opposite. The Scriptures exalt prudence, preparation, and long-term vision. Lack of planning is never presented as a virtue. On the contrary, it is associated with recklessness and unnecessary losses. Planning doesn't mean controlling everything. Planning means to take responsibility for what is within one's reach, while trusting in God for what lies beyond. It's about aligning faith with action. It's understanding that trusting God doesn't eliminate the need to think, organize, and decide wisely. In practice, faith without planning turns into constant improvisation, and constant improvisation generates stress, waste, and frustration. When this principle is not applied, financial life tends to be reactive. People don't anticipate expenses, don't define priorities, and don't set clear goals. They only respond to problems when they arise. They live constantly putting out fires. One month they solve one bill, the next they're scrambling to deal with another. In business, this translates to decisions made under pressure, a lack of strategic vision, and unstable growth. The result is a permanent feeling of effort without real progress. The Bible teaches us that the wise person thinks before acting, evaluates costs, and considers paths. This applies directly to personal finances. Planning means knowing how much comes in, how much goes out, and where you want to go. It's about creating a budget, defining financial goals, and setting deadlines. Not to become rigid or obsessive, but to have clarity. And where there is clarity, there is peace. Many financial anxieties don't stem from a lack of money, but from a lack of direction. In a professional and business context, planning becomes even more essential. Solid businesses are not built solely on good ideas, but on vision, structure, and consistency. Planning means thinking about growth before it happens, preparing for opportunities before they arise. It's deciding today what you want to reap tomorrow. When this doesn't happen, even good opportunities can become problems because the person wasn't ready to receive them. Principle 4. Diligent work opens doors. But before we move on, if you're enjoying the content so far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps YouTube recommend this video to more people. Continuing with Principle 4, the Bible does not romanticize laziness nor glorify results without process. On the contrary, it repeatedly states that diligence leads to abundance, while negligence leads to scarcity. Diligent work is not just working hard, it is working good with responsibility, excellence, and perseverance, even when no one is watching. It's understanding that every task, no matter how small it may seem, is part of something bigger that is being built. In everyday life, this principle manifests itself in a very practical way. How many people complain about the lack of opportunities, but don't prepare themselves when they arise? How many want to grow financially but treat their current job with carelessness, tardiness, or lack of commitment? Diligence begins exactly where you are with what you have now. Before opening big doors, God observes how we handle the small ones. In a professional context, diligent work builds reputation. Diligent people are remembered, recommended, and promoted, not because they market themselves, but because they consistently deliver value. In an increasingly competitive market, diligence becomes a powerful differentiator. While many seek quick recognition, those who work consistently build something that lasts. In business, this principle is even more evident. Solid ventures are not born from brilliant ideas alone, but from daily execution. There are days of motivation and days of exhaustion. There are moments of growth and periods of stagnation. What separates those who advance from those who give up is diligence. It is about continuing to adjust, learn, and work, even when the results are not immediate. The Bible teaches that success is the fruit of a process, not an isolated event. Spiritually, diligent work also reveals character. It demonstrates that a person is not only interested in benefits, but also in responsibility. It reveals maturity, humility, and commitment. Working with excellence is a practical form of worship because it honors God through actions. It's not just about what you do, but how you do it. Principle 5. Integrity is worth more than quick profit. When opportunities begin to appear, they don't always come clean, clear, or aligned with values. Often they come disguised as shortcuts, small concessions, seemingly harmless decisions that promise immediate gains. A poorly explained contract, an ignored tax, an exaggerated promise to the client, a product sold without total transparency. Profit seems close, easy, and seductive. And it is precisely at this moment that integrity is put to the test. The Bible emphatically states that dishonest scales are abominable and that justice pleases God. This is not merely a moral instruction, it is a fundamental principle. Businesses, careers, and finances built without integrity may grow rapidly, but they carry within them the seeds of their downfall. What is not solid at the foundation cannot withstand the weight of growth. In everyday life, a lack of integrity starts small. Just this once. Everyone does it. No one will notice. But these small concessions create a pattern, and patterns build destinies. People who give up integrity to gain more end up paying an invisible price. They lose their peace, live in fear of being discovered, and build success on constant tension. The money comes in, but the tranquility goes out. In business, integrity is a silent yet extremely powerful asset. Companies with integrity build trust. And trust generates loyal customers, lasting partnerships, and a solid reputation. It may seem that acting correctly makes you miss opportunities, but in the long run, it's exactly the opposite. Integrity filters out the wrong opportunities and paves the way for the right ones. It doesn't accelerate the process, but it strengthens it. In professional life, this principle is also clearly evident. People of integrity may not be the first to rise when the criteria are purely political or convenient, but they are the ones who remain when everything changes. Integrity creates stability. It gives weight to your name, value to your word, and commands respect from your presence. And that cannot be bought with money. Spiritually, integrity reveals who truly governs the heart. When someone chooses to do the right thing even when it costs them dearly, they are saying, in practice, that they trust God more than money. They are affirming that they believe provision depends not on deceit, but on alignment. This stance releases something profound, a clear conscience. And a clear conscience is worth more than any immediate financial gain. Principle 6. He who learns to save, learns to prosper. The Bible uses a simple and powerful image when speaking of the ant, which works at the right time and stores for the future. There is no glamour in this scene. There is no haste nor ostentation. There is constancy, vision, and discipline. Saving, in the biblical light, is not accumulating out of fear, nor retaining out of selfishness. It is prepare for tomorrow wisely, recognizing that the future is also part of spiritual responsibility. Many people live a dangerous paradox. They earn more, but never progress. The money comes in, but always disappears. The problem isn't just income, but the lack of a safety net. When there are no reserves, any unforeseen event becomes a crisis. A health problem, a drop in revenue, an unexpected expense, everything turns into despair. Saving creates space. Financial, emotional, and even spiritual space. In practice, saving is an exercise in self-control. It's learning to say no now in order to say yes in the future. It's resisting the pressure of impulsive consumption, constant comparison, and the need to prove something to someone. The Bible teaches us that wisdom knows how to wait. And waiting in the world of finance is one of the rarest and most valuable skills. Saving is what transforms income into security. It's not about large amounts, but about consistency. Small amounts saved regularly build a solid foundation over time. Those who save don't just live in the present, they live with vision. And vision reduces anxiety. Knowing that you have savings changes how you approach decisions, opportunities, and even crises. Principle 7. Generosity breaking the cycle of scarcity. Scarcity often doesn't begin in the pocket, it begins in the mind. It's the constant feeling that there's never enough, that there will always be a shortage, that hoarding everything is the only way to survive. This mentality causes a person to close themselves off, become defensive, reactive, and excessively preoccupied with hoarding. The problem is that those who live only to hoard never experience flow. And the Bible teaches that life thrives in movement. Generosity, in biblical terms, is not financial irresponsibility nor impulsive giving. It stems from the trust that God remains the source. Those who are generous don't give because they have extra, but because they understand that what passes through their hands doesn't end there. There is a greater purpose. There is an impact beyond mere comfort. And this awareness completely changes the relationship with money. In everyday life, generosity manifests itself in various ways, helping someone in need, investing in another person's growth, contributing to meaningful causes, supporting projects that transform lives. It's not just about large sums of money, but about the disposition of the heart. Small acts, done consistently and purposefully, break the logic of scarcity and build a mindset of abundance. The Bible states that those who sow generously will reap generously. This should not be interpreted as a magic formula for exchange, but as a profound spiritual principle. Generosity aligns the heart with God's abundance. It breaks down fear, weakens excessive attachment, and teaches that security comes not from accumulation, but from trust. When a person learns to give, they also learn to receive, not just resources but opportunities, connections, and growth. Principle 8. Debt enslaves, wisdom liberates. The Bible is clear in stating that the debtor becomes a servant of the creditor. This phrase is not symbolic, it is literal. Debt is not just a financial commitment, it creates dependence, pressure, and loss of autonomy. When someone lives in debt, part of their future is already compromised. Decisions are made not based on purpose, but on urgency. Life ceases to be guided by vision and becomes guided by bills, deadlines, and collections. Debt manifests itself in silent ways. It begins with small installments, emotional purchases, unplanned decisions. Often, it arises from the attempt to maintain a standard that does not correspond to reality or to fill internal voids with external consumption. The problem is that what promises momentary comfort ends up becoming a constant source of anxiety. The pleasure is fleeting, but the burden remains. Financially, debt steals something precious. Margin it eliminates the ability to choose. A person can't save, can't invest, can't be generous with freedom. Everything becomes calculated to the limit. And living on the edge for a long time is exhausting. It's exhausting emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's not uncommon to see people exhausted not from overwork, but from overworrying. Perhaps you are listening to this while carrying an invisible weight. Perhaps debt has become so commonplace that it seems like a part of life. But this principle reminds us that this is neither normal nor inevitable. Freedom is possible, and it begins when wisdom, not impulse, starts guiding decisions. Principle 9. Contentment, the wealth that money can't buy. The world teaches that contentment is a consequence of achievements. The Bible teaches the opposite. Contentment is an internal decision, not an external condition. This doesn't mean complacency, lack of ambition, or giving up on growth. It means learning to live in peace while growing. It means not allowing the pursuit of more to destroy the ability to appreciate what has already been achieved. The absence of contentment generates a dangerous cycle. A person always believes that the next goal will bring satisfaction, the next raise, the next project, the next level. But when they get there, the satisfaction is short-lived. Soon a new target emerges, a new comparison, a new dissatisfaction. This cycle is fueled by constant comparison, with friends, colleagues, social media, unrealistic standards of success. The result is a race without a finish line. Biblically, contentment is deeply linked to gratitude and trust. Those who learn to be grateful for the present understand that their identity is not tied to what they possess. The Bible states that the love of money is the root of many evils, not money itself, but disordered attachment, emotional dependence. Contentment breaks this attachment. It restores lightness to the journey. Principle 10. True enrichment begins within. The Bible makes it clear that before transforming circumstances, God transforms people. Before expanding territories, He works on the heart. This is because external riches without internal structure become a burden. Financial gains without emotional maturity generate anxiety. Success without spiritual alignment creates emptiness. Therefore, true enrichment begins within, in a renewed mind, a strengthened character, and a well-defined identity. When this principle is ignored, we see repeated stories. People who prosper quickly but lose everything. Professionals who reach high positions but live exhausted lives. Entrepreneurs who build empires but cannot enjoy them. The problem is not money, but the absence of solid inner foundations. The Bible teaches that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. In other words, the exterior always reflects the interior. Inner enrichment begins when values are stronger than impulses. When identity doesn't depend on status. When decisions aren't guided by comparison. When a person knows who they are, regardless of how much they possess. This kind of wealth doesn't appear in bank statements, but it sustains everything that does. This manifests very clearly in financial life. Emotionally healthy people handle money better. They don't spend to fill voids. They don't accumulate out of fear. They don't go into debt to prove their worth. They use money with balance because they don't expect it to resolve internal conflicts. Money ceases to be emotional compensation and becomes a conscious tool. Inner enrichment also changes the relationship with success. Success ceases to be a desperate end and becomes a natural consequence of an aligned life. The person doesn't chase success, they walk towards their purpose. And on this path, success finds space to manifest itself without destroying. Because in the end, money only amplifies who a person already is. If there is internal disorder, it amplifies the chaos. If there is internal alignment, it amplifies the good. Therefore, true enrichment begins within. When this wealth is built, everything that comes after finds a foundation, balance, and direction. Throughout this content, you've seen that biblical principles about money aren't just about finances, but about character, purpose, and wisdom for living a balanced and prosperous life. When these values are applied daily, they transform how we handle resources, work, business, and success, generating results that go beyond the material and reach the inner self. If this message resonated with you and added value to your life, please like, subscribe to the channel, and follow our upcoming content to continue growing in wisdom, faith, and purpose.